What's going on, everybody, and welcome to this summer 2020 session of MAT107 College and Career Mathematics, taking place at least in spirit at the Larimer campus of Front Range Community College, but in reality taking place here online, as are all the classes in this summer session of Front Range Community College. My name is John Withrow. I'll be your instructor for this particular class, and I thought I'd just give you this video here, not only to welcome you to this 10-week course, but also to give you a kind of orientation to how this class is going to work over the next few weeks here. Let me switch to the right screen here and turn myself off here so that I can show you this next slide here. Let's give you a little bit of information about myself here. You can see my official business photograph in the upper right here, but more importantly, you can see some members of my family here as well. I can be reached either by cell phone 412-5407 or by my Front Range email address. You can see that in the upper left here. My availability online will be from 1 to 3 o'clock Sunday through Thursday. So that's the time in which I'm going to be online to check emails and check your discussion posts and things like that. I'll be unavailable Friday and Saturday, but what I want you to see here from this is that I have a wonderful wife here that you can see. She collects teapots. This is actually one of her favorite ones here. You can see us hiking over here. I also have three magnificent stepsons who are shown here, one of whom is getting married, and the other two are shown here as well. It's Michael, Chip, and Brad. So this is me. This is my family. I live here in Fort Collins, so I just wanted to allow you to see me in all of my glory. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but nevertheless, I just wanted you to have a chance to meet me and my family. Here are my values as a teacher here. First of all, learning should, of course, involve high standards of student understanding and performance, but the ways in which we get there really govern my other values here. First of all, learning should be safe. Most significantly in this context, I'm talking about clear and impartial expectations, so you know exactly what it is that you need to do in order to succeed. That creates a sense of safety throughout the learning process here. Also, learning should be active. This is not, my philosophy is not that you just sit and get, so to speak, that I just talk at you and you start to, and you hopefully remember what's going on. You can see here from this ancient Chinese proverb here, I hear and forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. And I hear this so often from quite a few of you who come up to me in previous classes. I've taught at Front Range for about 2 years now. And I hear over and over again, in order for me to learn something, you can't just tell it to me. I have to actually do it. You have to stick me in front of it, and I actually have to do it. And that's actually the way most people learn most effectively. So that's not just you. Just keep in mind that means that I'll be giving you a lot of problems to solve. The best way to learn math is to simply do math. And so it's always kind of funny around the third week or so after the first week in which students have said, man, I have to be doing this in order to be able to learn it. Around the third week or so, I hear things like, man, why are you having us do all this stuff? So there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there, but you laugh it off. But that's really the reason why it is that I'm going to have you doing a lot of work, not just on a weekly basis, but almost on a every other day basis. One of the worst things that I can do, I think, as an online instructor is to give you a week-long time frame and say you don't have any deadlines whatsoever until Sunday night. That might work for some classes. It really doesn't work with math very well. Math, you have to practice on a very regular basis in order to really understand and be able to reproduce the kinds of concepts and techniques that we talk about. I oftentimes compare it to going to the gym, where you really have to, you can't just cram your workout into just, one last time there. If you try to do that, it'll be difficult. You'll be stressed out, you'll be frustrated, it'll be a bad experience. And so you'll actually notice, and I'm getting ahead of myself here a bit, but you'll actually notice that I have modules that are not really modules, but due dates that span only a couple of days or so. So I'll have you jumping and doing things that will really keep you engaged and doing almost a daily practice within this particular class. Hope that's okay for you, because that really is the best way, I think, in order to effectively learn mathematics. Another thing here, learning should be participatory, and that starts to get into one of the things that we'll also be doing here. There will be discussion forums, and I don't know if you've taken online classes before, but if you have, then you're probably very, very much aware of doing these discussion posts where somebody posts something and you reply to it, and usually there's a discussion that happens. You might think, how in the world do you do that with a math class? Believe me, there are ways in which you can and can make it into a very rich process in which people learn an awful lot, not through just the process of doing, but also by learning from each other. The process of cooperative learning, which is the last thing here that I'm showing here as well. Learning should be cooperative, where there's teaching among students. Even if you get to a point in which you see something as being, this is easy, I don't need any help from anybody else, the process of teaching other students actually makes it so that you actually learn, the teacher actually learns things, gets things reinforced just as much as the student does. So teaching is kind of strange in that it promotes learning from both teacher and student, and you can experience that quite a bit when you're teaching each other. Here's the grading. Here's how it's going to work here, and it's very similar to all the other instructors who are teaching 107 over the summer here. 35% is going to be an online final exam that you'll be taking on August 3rd. That's the last day of the class here, so you kind of get an understanding now of the framework. This is going to go from basically the day after Memorial Day to August 3rd. 30% will be quizzes. These will also be online. They'll be done through something called My Math Lab, which is something that I hope that you've purchased by now. If not, make sure that you talk to me and make sure that you can get access to that. That'll be important, because you also will be doing this homework also through the My Math Lab website, which is a nice little website that allows for you to do some practice online. And then lastly, we have some what I call guided thinking activities here, and that's how I present the content to you. I don't just sit and talk to you. What I actually do is I give you an activity sheet. I do one problem, then I have you do one problem, then I come back and I do another problem, and then you do another problem. So it's very, very participatory. I think that's the best way to learn, quite frankly. And so I call these things not lessons, not lectures, but guided thinking activities here. In addition to that, you're also going to have some weekly discussions that you'll be doing as well, in which you're posting problems that you feel confident with, things that you've got questions on, and hopefully students will be replying to those things to present some additional help towards those questions. Pretty standard grading scale that I have here. 90s is an A, a grade in the 80s is a B, grade in the 70s is a C, 60s is D, below that is an F. Here's some materials that you really want to have for you. You do really want to have a calculator available to you. Really, quite frankly, the calculator that's on your smartphone will do just fine. If you need a calculator, the TI-30X is pretty cheap. I think it's less than $20. You can get that fairly simply. You can get the textbook, and that can be very, very helpful. But on the My Math Lab website, you actually have access to a PDF version of the textbook. So that allows for you to have access to the textbook without the additional cost there. But you do need to purchase the My Math Lab license that comes with the textbook if you purchase that. If not, make sure that you get access to that. You'll need also a loose leaf 3-ring binder in order to store all those activity sheets that I'll be having you print off as we're going through each one of the lessons throughout the summer. Here's the long-term schedule, and you've already gotten a little bit of an understanding of it. I don't think I'm covering anything up here in August with my picture here, because the ending date is August 3rd here. We're starting I don't really show the last week here of May, but we're starting the week after Memorial Day. Some important dates throughout this summer calendar are the non-attendance reporting deadline. Make sure that you are participating in the discussions and just showing that you're present in that first week, because if I haven't seen any basically any neurons firing from you by the 1st of June, then I have to report you as a non-attending one, and then you'll be dropped from the class here. So the last day to drop with a refund will be the following Thursday. There's a payment deadline of the 23rd here. If you are graduating at the end of this summer, make sure that you do your graduation applications for priority July 1st, and the final deadline would be the 20th. And the last day also to withdraw from the class, this would be with a W, and also with no refund, would be July 20th. And lastly, the last day of class, as you already know, is August 3rd here. Here's just a bird's eye view of the content that we're going to be going through here. You can actually download and print this off the D2L off of our D2L website that we've got going here now. This is just a listing of some of the things we're going to be going through: multiples, fractions, decimals, customary units in the United States, converting between metrics and U.S. customary units, how to add and subtract positive and negative numbers, as well as multiply and divide those things, working with positive and negative fractions and decimals, scientific notation, percents, accuracy, precision, and error. We'll be solving equations and working with variables and formulas. We'll also talk about proportions, as well as talking about things like direct and inverse variation. If something goes up, then something else goes up. We've actually been seeing this in the recent news. As oil prices come down, what have gasoline prices been doing? They've also been coming down. That's called a direct variation there between the oil prices and the gas prices. We'll talk about how you read graphical mathematical information, like from circle graphs and bar charts and line graphs, how you can calculate averages and frequency distributions and graph lines. Talk about polygons and circles and special triangle relationships, volume, surface area, those kinds of things. Very, very, very physical, very, very, very real world. And you'll find that the applications that we have are very industrial. They're very, very common. These are things that are going to have rich applications to them. I also wanted to show you a single week here and just focus on what our weekly routine is going to be. I've already started to talk about how, I'm going to keep you practicing on a regular basis here. Essentially what I've done is each week I've divided it into 3 parts. And each part has a due date first. The first due date is Tuesday night. The second due date is Thursday night. And then the last due date is the following Sunday night after the weekend. And so you'll be doing, it actually shows you on this schedule here what you'll be doing. You'll be doing guided thought activity 5A. You'll be doing this homework on My Math Lab, and you'll be doing this quiz on My Math Lab here. You'll have something similar here that's due this Thursday night, and you'll have the same thing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but you also will be participating in discussions, and you'll want to actually be participating in these discussions also earlier in the week. One of the ways in which you're graded on the quality of your discussion posts is how much time are you giving your classmates to provide some replies or responses or commentaries to what it is that you've posted there. And if you're posting everything Sunday night at 9:30 p.m., you're not really providing much of an opportunity for your classmates to interact with what you've posted. And so that's part of how you're going to be graded. And so you would do well to be thinking about this discussion stuff here earlier on in the week. Even though I list it as being due that final Sunday night, that's the drop dead due date, but you'll want to be thinking about those discussions earlier on in the week. So you can see here that there are really 4 things going on at the same time. There's a guided thought activity, there's a homework, there's a quiz, and there's a discussion panel. That's what's going on, those 4 things, and really only those 4 things. That's going to be the 4 things going on in your mind as we are proceeding through this class. Once again, these guided thought activities here, these are, I'm going to try to make it so that they're videos and that they're interactive, not sit and get, like I said before here. So your completion of the guided practice problems is part of your participation grade. And the way that I do this is I actually place the video, believe it or not, inside of a D2L, that's Desire to Learn, that's the website here. I stick it inside of a D2L quiz. So it actually shows up as a quiz. It's not a quiz. It's actually the instruction module that you'll be getting your information from. I stick it inside of a quiz because, as I said, I do one problem, then you do one problem, I do a problem, and you do one problem. The goal here is that when you're doing a problem, you're going to post your solution on the next as an answer for a quiz, and then you'll go to the next one, and then you'll be able to answer the next question and give that answer for the quiz. You'll be able to repeat your give as many attempts as you want to, so if you miss something, you can go back and correct it. So I wouldn't worry about whether or not you get the right answer here, but this is just a measure of accountability that I have in place to make sure that you're going through these guided thought activities here. Homework assignments and quizzes. Again, this takes place through my math lab. Instructions are getting set up are in the Getting Started module. So you'll want to focus your attention on that first module there on our D2L homepage. And these are important parts of your grade. It'll give you the information that you need for the next category of activities, really, which is weekly discussions here. Each week you will make 3 original posts on your weekly discussions. So here's what they'll entail. You might be asking, what can you do with math here? Here's the first thing. A homework problem whose solution you can thoroughly explain. That means I can start with, type in what the question is, and you can take the reader through a methodical, step-by-step, logical, understandable sequence of steps to get you not only to the numeric answer to the problem, but also lastly to the interpretation of that number. You have an answer of 3. Okay, well, what is that? So the size of this cube is 3 cubic centimeters. So you interpret the number in terms of the problem. So that's the first thing that you can post. And by the way, once you've chosen a problem, nobody else can choose that one. So it's a good idea to choose early so that you can get one of the problems that perhaps might be a little more straightforward and simple for doing that thing. Second thing, a homework problem from the week with which you have a question. But make sure that you don't just say, I have a problem with question 3. You want to make it, first of all, you list the question completely and make your question specific. Don't just say, I'm lost, or I'm completely, baffled by this. Tell what you understand and then describe what your question is. Part of the process of learning effectively is turning confusions into questions. Being able to say, okay, I get it that you've got to do this and this and this, but I'm stuck on this one part. That's much better learning than just saying, I'm so lost. And lastly, here's a third possibility. If you know of a real-life situation which makes use of one of the concepts that we've been describing this week, be it percents, be it proportions, addition and subtraction of decimals, list that and list it in its entirety. The big thing that I want you to think about in terms of the quality of your posts is, if I were to show this to a friend of mine who's not taking this course, would that person understand what I'm saying? In addition to these 3 original posts, you'll be making 2 replies to other posts. And so each of those can be one of the following. First of all, it can be congratulatory feedback, where you're celebrating somebody else's work, but make it specific. Make it so that you don't just say, this was good. Say, I really like how you went through this one part here because I don't think that that's described well enough in John's videos here. This takes things step by step through this and this. I thought you were very explicit here. So make it very, very specific. And then also provides another possibility is to take a look at a post and provide some constructive feedback, answering a specific question. If somebody says, you know, I've got a question on this one spot here and you know the answer, give your answer. The process of teaching each other, once again, is very, very powerful. So you can give that constructive feedback in a manner that will probably teach the other students better than I could, because you understand better than I do what it is to be a beginner at this information. So here's how these things are graded. Each post is worth 10 points, and you're doing 5 of them, so it's a total of 50 points each week. Each post is judged according to these criteria here. First of all, 4 points, the quality of your explanation. You know, how well are you explaining something? Even if what you're describing isn't a solution to something, it's a question, give as much relevant information as possible when you're giving that question here. Another 2 points is the originality of your material here. If you're posting something that's also discussed in other postings, there's not so much value that's being had in your post here. So that actually brings up an important point. Before you post, read what's already up on the discussion postings. So that makes it so that you know what's going on, and so you can post something that truly adds value by being original. The timeliness of the post is worth another 2 points. In other words, is this post early enough in the week for others to respond to it? All right. 1 point, unique posting date. In other words, have you made more than one other post on the same date? Here's what this is about. If you make all 5 of your posts at one time, you'll get that 1 point for the first 2, but you won't get it for the last 3. The goal here is that you're not just showing up once a week to this discussion forum. You're showing up multiple times a week so that you can be touching base and adding value on a regular basis. Again, this pulls through one of my common themes here is that you have to be doing this not just once a week, but on a consistent basis throughout the week. So unique posting dates here. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, a 1 point, which is really describing the affect of the email, the attitude that can be sensed in the language here. Excuse me. This is really, really important, especially for written feedback. Sometimes when you're writing something in a online forum, it can be, if you say things in the wrong way, it can be taken as not being very helpful. Just be very, very reminiscent of that. Be very, very mindful of that as you're going through these things. If you're new to online learning, if this is your first online training class, there is a required online learning training course at Front Range. It's called Orientation to Online Learning. I'll have more information on that pretty soon here. I'm hopefully going to see if I can create a link to it in the Getting Started module. In addition, I've also included some additional materials in the Getting Started module under helpful FRCC links. If you're new to Desire to Learn, there's some links in there. If you're new to some other aspects of Front Range, you can find some links there as well. Okay, the fact that this is an online course makes it so that there are some aspects of online learning that sometimes work in some classes, but don't always work very well in something that is math related. Your generation and mine has been blessed with a lot of materials, many of which you recognize from these symbols up here, that allow for us to be doing multiple things all at once. And actually, studies have shown that multitasking works fine if what you're doing is routine and, well, brainless. If what you're doing doesn't require a whole lot of neurons to fire, if it's automatic, if it's something that you've done many, many times before, then multitasking works fine. The places where it does not work, Well, your generation and mine are getting a front row seat on how there are some situations in which multitasking really does not work for the brain. In fact, it's been shown that your brain actually does not multitask. What it does is it works on one thing at once, then switches to another thing, then switches to another thing, but it shifts its complete focus on multiple things there and hopes that it doesn't drop the ball in switching from one thing to the next here. And so it's always funny. Well, hopefully not too funny, but it's interesting to watch. Actually, we're going to see it in a couple of months here with the end of the summer, where we get to see a whole new generation of 18/19-year-old CSU students who will discover the hard way that text messaging and College Avenue do not mix. You'll just drive by and you'll say, okay, what did we learn? That will be interesting to watch here. And so there are some things that multitasking works very well, other things they're not. The places where multitasking does not work are places that require an awful lot of thought or focus, and especially learning. It just doesn't work. And so keep that in mind as you are doing this. If you're online doing the class, but you've also got Facebook up and YouTube and Hulu and Netflix, and you're doing battle with the snake lord of such and such in the cave of whatever using the amulet of so and so, and trying to catch math on the side, you'll find it to be frustrating. You will actually find that you're not retaining the information as well as you'd like, and by the time that we are well into the semester, you'll see those effects pile up, I'm afraid, and it will be frustrating for you. So I'm wanting you to do your best to turn off all other sources that are competing for your attention, including your cell phone, if that's feasible for you. I understand if you're at home, you've probably got kids that might pop in and they have urgencies in their life that have to be taken care of. I know how that is. But just do your best to make it so this is your time. This is a time in which you are really focused on getting done what needs to get done, and you'll find that this is not nearly as frustrating once you do that. And not only is it important to unplug from all the noise that exists outside, there's a lot of research on what's called mindfulness in education. And the idea behind this is to not only turn off the noise that's outside, all the distractions that are outside, but also to try to turn off the distractions that are inside. All of those thoughts that creep up during the process of really doing anything, where there's commentary going on the inside, in which there's judging that takes place, and there's evaluation that takes place, and commentary, and worrying about the future, regretting the past, all of those things that, maybe there's a place for talking about them in some context, but not now. And it would be nice if our brains obeyed us when we told them not to think about something, but they're not very good at doing that. And so there's actually some things that I try to do near the beginning of the class to try and make it so that we can, at least to some extent, clear our minds so that the distractions from inside can also be turned off so that your focus can be on what's going on here. The practice of doing this is actually very simple. It's 4 steps. You focus on one thing. Usually I'll make it your breathing for a little while. You'll be doing that for a little bit. Then what's going to happen? Your mind's going to wander off. You're going to say, why is John doing this? This is kind of strange here. What does this have to do with math? Why is he doing this? Why is he being so weird? You'll notice that it wanders, and then you'll shift your attention back to that one thing again. You'll notice that it says repeat here. I know that this is not going to be easy for your brain, especially in our modern culture where we have so many distractions coming at us all the time. And it's something that our culture, my generation, is blessed the millennial generation with quite a bit. The access to content is wonderful, but we've done you harm without meaning to, and that is that we forgot to inform you of the value of unplugging, of getting in touch not with content but with emptiness. And by emptiness I mean stillness, wonderful stillness that makes it so that you can sort of touch base with the calm inside of you in a way that disconnects you from unnecessary worry and regret, and can actually make it so that you can focus on the lesson that you need to do, and as it turns out, learn most effectively. And so this is actually the screen that I oftentimes start off my guided thinking activities with. And it's just something where we take about a minute or so, and I actually have you focus on your breathing for a little while here. So let's actually go through that as our first exercise here. Just focus on your breathing here. Your mind needs something to think about. So, okay, so give it to the breath. Makes it so that we first start off here focused on your breathing. So the idea here is feel your breath in and out. You'll have other thoughts come into your mind. Just let them go. Just understand that they're there. Just let them go. Come back to this. Feel your breath in all parts of your chest, your upper part, your lower part, left side, right side, all sides, front and back. You might be thinking, why in the world is this brought up in math class? It's so that you can succeed. It's actually a very, very important part of the learning process here. It's also a very good calming technique when, for example, you're faced with a final exam coming up and you need to calm yourself. There's a special breathing technique that you can do that informs your brain, no, there's nothing really to be scared of right now. You can focus on math. Because in our brains were not really designed for the modern world that we live in right now. Our brains were designed for the sort of Game of Thrones style world that existed 5 to 10,000 years ago that we existed. And when that happened, you were nervous, it was about something that was pretty serious. There was something big and ugly that was charging at you. And in any case, it was not the time to work on fractions, right? So it's no great mystery that many people who get nervous say, I just freeze up and I can't do math problems when I get nervous. That's actually biological. Your brain shuts down some of the higher order functions when it gets nervous, so that it can focus on the survival that needs to happen in order to get through this scary situation. Worked great 5 or 10,000 years ago, doesn't work well for this situation. So we actually have to override that mechanism using the breathing technique. I'll actually tell you what it is right now. It's actually breathing in rhythmic motion. That means if you take 5 seconds to inhale and then 5 seconds to exhale, it's the same thing. 5 and then 5. 5 and then 5. It doesn't actually matter what the numbers are, but make it so that it's rhythmic and consistent. Maybe it's 4 in and 3 out, and then 4 in and 3 out. Actually having that rhythmic pattern of breathing sends the message to your mind, everything's okay. Okay, so that's an important technique here that will hopefully help you out near the end of this class here as well, if you struggle with some degree of test anxiety. So that's actually, you'll notice that there aren't any exams in the class before that final exam. That's actually on purpose. It was actually a meeting between me and all the other instructors, and we said, we notice that people who are genuinely good at math tend to freeze up whenever they see the words math test at the top of a sheet of paper. So we've taken those larger exams and kind of split them up into those quizzes, which I mentioned before, which you'll be taking along with your homework on my math lab here. We still have to have a final exam. regulations, a mandatory final exam at the end, so that's there as well. But hopefully the process of taking quizzes over and over and over again will make it so that you're ready, so that you're well acquainted with the process, and it's not going to be all that weird and all that scary. So what do we do now? How do I begin the class here? First thing, make sure that you've purchased a MyMathLab license. If you need to, the bookstore I think is available online, so that you can go there and either purchase a textbook, or if you don't purchase the textbook, at least purchase the MyMathLab thing there, which you're actually going to get. I know that when you purchase the textbook from the physical bookstore, is that you'd get something that looks like this, and it's actually a little card, so to speak, and you scratch off the portion right in here, and that's the code that you enter in for your access to MyMathLab. It's non-transferable to any other student, but that's yours to that gives you access to all those materials there. Peruse the content in the Getting Started module here. And do it with the following objectives in mind. Have I gotten into MyMathLab, and do I know how to get on MyMathLab in the future? Okay, so just make sure that you can access that homework and those quizzes, from here on out. And also, do I know how I can insert images or equations into a discussion post? That's that third thing there, the discussion posts. Do I know how to attach an image? If I'm in the homework and I'm stuck on a problem, maybe I need to take a picture of it and stick that into the discussion post, and be able to add that to the discussion. There's also a way in which you can add equations into the discussion posts, or really any posts in Desire to Learn. And I'll actually be creating a video on how you do that. But make sure that you know how to do that as well. And then lastly, go to the week 1 module and print off your first to-do list, and you'll be getting started on that. I need to go create that to-do list here pretty soon here, so give me a second to do that, but I'll be doing that very, very soon. I just want to welcome you to the class. I am very, very excited about this next summer. I love teaching this stuff. I really enjoy doing it. I actually had a career doing statistics with the Forest Service, in which I was making about twice the money that I'm making right now, but now I'm having about 100 times more fun. So this is something that I do because I love it, and I enjoy working with students just like you, who have expectations and desires, and perhaps a few anxieties about taking a math class. So go through those things that I've listed there, and just know that you're welcome to the class. Make sure that, if possible, go ahead and email me, so we can touch base on a one-on-one basis there as well, so that I can learn more about you as well. So be well. I will see you soon, and again, welcome to the class.